I would lay in my bed at night and I would stare at the ceiling and I would have these dreams that somewhere I would be in front of a large group of people leading from the front. I remember this distinctly because I remember thinking, if I got married and had kids, doing this, whatever this is going to be, how am I going to have time to cook dinner? So just having that little moment of how am I going to fit it all in, I was clearly thinking big.
A young Michelle Bridges knew it at the age of 14, that she could lead people to a healthier life. But that didn't mean her path to success would be straightforward. You'll hear how she built her empire and what she did when things got rocky. It's lunchtime at Nelson Bay High School in regional New South Wales. Spandex bodysuits and leg warmers dot the school's gym. It's the 80s, the height of the aerobics craze, and a 14-year-old Michelle Bridges has convinced the school principal to let her run a fitness class for the kids who usually ditch PE. Even though she's the new kid in town, she's managed to convince a few of her peers to join her. This knack for motivating a crowd would be the start of Michelle's career, one that saw her become a trainer on TV's The Biggest Loser. But it wasn't a clear path from that high school auditorium for Michelle. Before she got to the city, she was living in the desert. Michelle, what took you to Alice Springs?
I was living in Newcastle and I was working in a bank, but also still teaching fitness on the side. And I was dating a guy who was in the Air Force, and I've never been one to sort of shy away from adventure. So he said, "Oh, I'm being posted to Alice Springs. Do you want to come?" And I just said, yeah, why not? And I figured that I could probably take my fitness life and create it into a full-time role. I knew a girl that was working in the fitness industry full-time, and all she ever did was rock around in her fitness gear, and this was well before it was fashionable. And I thought, that's what I want to do. So I said, yeah, I'll come to Alice Springs and I'll do full-time fitness there. So that's what I did.
And what was it like to have your career start there in all places?
Well, as I said, I'd already been sort of cutting my teeth on being a part-time instructor. But when I got there, I immediately went into the YMCA. I was contacting them before I got there to say I was coming up. And I started working there in the YMCA as a trainer. And then I was also doing PT on the side. And then before I knew it, I was sort of working in the office. And then before I knew it, I was working on the school holiday program, which meant I had to do the full Christmas holidays, juniors and seniors, and write the programs of what we were doing every single day across all of those weeks. And then sort of host them, which was extraordinarily exhausting, but very rewarding as well. So I just became ensconced in the YMCA and everything it stood for. And that was really when I started delving into physique training, competition. And when I also there started delving into Les Mills, I found out about Les Mills and we brought that back to Alice Springs. We were one of the first gyms in Australia to have the Les Mills program. And from that point, there was a lot of things that were going on. I went all over around the country competing, and then I got sent to America to compete in the World Championships of Miss Fitness. And in the back of my mind, I was thinking, I really love this Les Mills program. And when I get back from America, I might think about moving to Sydney and seeing if I could get my foot in the door as a trainer for Les Mills. And at that point, they were just starting to really take off.
You were 26 by the time you packed up your sports girl Barina with all your worldly possessions and kind of hightailed it from Alice to Sydney, the big smoke. You'd been in the fitness industry. Was it a big leap?
It was. I mean, I'd lived in Newcastle, which is a big town, but I'd been 4 years, or just over 4 years in Alice Springs. So to go from Alice Springs to Sydney was an enormous leap. I'd never lived in Sydney before. And when I arrived, or as I was arriving, I didn't really have a job. I knew a few people. I'd been to a couple of conferences in Sydney, and I'd met and networked with some people and sort of said, oh, look, I'm thinking about doing this. So I had a bedroom on the lounge room floor for a couple of nights at some friends' houses, and they introduced me to a couple of gym owners, and it kind of just literally went from there. So I remember distinctly driving across the Sydney Harbour Bridge in my Holden Sports Girl second-hand Barina with all of my worldly possessions in the back, and I knew I had about $300 in the bank, and that was it.
What I'm noticing about you is this tenacity, this drive to make things happen. As I understand it, you were only about 14 when you first walked in to a gym or a squash court and convinced someone that you wanted to get going with fitness classes.
Yeah, I mean, I was, I think I was so fantastic in my whole get up of my leg warmers and, uni leotard and my mixed tapes in cassette. And I thought I was just killing it. So that was when I thought I'll go into the squash courts and I'll talk to the owner operator behind the counter and tell him that, I'm it and I can fill the squash courts with people. And, if you build it, they will come kind of thing. Not trained in any way, shape or form. I mean, seriously, the man must have been on drugs to let me loose on the general public because it would so never fly today. There'd be so much litigation. The 14-year-old, belting everybody up in the gym. But I just have had, for many years of my life, I've had an extremely strong sense of self-belief.
And where do you think that comes from? How did you have that at 14?
I think it was because I was doing something that I really loved. I always loved my sport. It was something that I just adored passionately, and I was good at some of it and I was terrible at some of it. But I loved it, and I fell in love not only with the competition, I definitely loved the competition, but I also really loved the training. And I knew at a very young age that what I was getting out of my sport, I just knew what I was getting out of my sport were life lessons about how to be accountable, how to be responsible, how to be a team player, how to be a star performer, but also still a team player, how to win and how to lose. Now, these are, I think, massive life lessons that I've taken with me through, to today. And I felt extremely passionate about that. So then, when I went to school, one of my several schools that I went to, the last school, my high school, Nelson Bay, I thought I could see kids that just weren't participating in sport. And I was like, they're just missing out. And I get that a lot of people, a lot of kids, a lot of adults don't like competition. They shy away from it. I get that. But what about the training principles and the training philosophies and the consistent habits that can be built in through training on a regular basis? What about that? And what about the fact that they're missing out on getting such a great high from moving your body? So that's the reason why I pitched the idea. I didn't know if it was going to fly, but, as soon as it did, I was like, oh, I've got to get my leg warmers. I've got to get my high top pump up Reeboks, and I've got to get my mixed tapes ready together to play some, high anthem disco diva, tunes and get this party started.
So once you did arrive in Sydney, you didn't waste any time. You landed a job as a trainer in a Balmain gym, and I think you met your future husband and your future business partner, Bill Moore, there. What was it like to start to work with him?
Well, I'd sort of put myself all over Sydney, basically. I was working in Chatswood, I was working in the city, I was working in the east, when I was working in Balmain. I really enjoyed working for owner-operated gyms. It was really the predominant amount of gyms in Australia were owner-operated. It wasn't until the big chains came later on. But I've really enjoyed working for the owners. And so Bill was one of them in Balmain. And I loved the floor space because the gym had this enormous floor space. And so I thought, I can fill that. So he said, well, we get about 30 to 40 people to a class. I said, you watch this, I'm going to get 100. And we did. And we were getting about 80 to 100 over in Chatswood. And they were just classes, you don't see them anymore like that. Like, it was just massive. We had mad speakers, massive room. We run out of weights, we run out of floor space. So we just shove them in. And it was just a big party. It was great.
And did you have a tactic though to get people to your classes? Like, was there something more than just it was kind of fun to be there and you were in the height of the craze or the trend at the time? Was there something that you specifically did to draw people in?
I honed my craft. Like, I got super good at being able to, what we call them cues, giving cues to people, dropping them in at the right time, not talking, then dropping in another cue, not over talking, but then, having fun, being self-effacing. The really good instructors out there really honed their craft. And because I was working for Les Mills as a trainer, I got lucky insofar as every weekend I was going out and training other trainers in how to do body pump, body attack, RPM and combat. So I was doing that every weekend, teaching them how to cue better, teaching them how to, get people in the right positions by just one word or just by one body movement. You're attracting attention and getting them back on track. So there was, it sounds crazy because it's like, oh, it's a fitness class. Like, how complicated can it be? But if you hone it and you really get down into the granular detail of, the words that you use, the vocabulary that you use. I used to write my cues out. Like, I'd write them out and I think, okay, I'm going to drop that in at that point in the song. And then I'm going to drop this in at that point in the song. And some of them would be technical. Some of them would be fun. It was a show.
I mean, it was a show and you made it look easy, but as I can already grasp, there's so much to doing this. It's, it's patting your head and rubbing your tummy at the same time, right?
Yeah. And I always used the heaviest weights. I always made sure that I was super going as hard as they were, and as whatever I expected from them, I was expecting out of myself. And, people just liked coming to a class where they saw a show, I suppose. And my passion, I wear it on my heart. I wear it on my sleeve. I mean, they seemed to like it, and we were getting sellout crowds.
And then walks in a pretty big name in Australian daytime TV. Who was it that started taking your gym class?
Yes. So Kerry-Ann Kennelly, I used to work at a club in the Hyde Park Club. And it was a limited space there, limited numbers. It was quite a prestigious club to be a part of, and to work there was fun because there was really interesting people, Kerry-Ann Kennelly being one of them. And it was at that point in my career where I thought, we're witnessing a tsunami of obesity coming our way. Little old me teaching a couple of fitness classes here and there is not going to make a difference. So I pitched an idea, a concept to her that she was doing the morning show. So I chased her around the gym ad nauseum. I'd turn up in all the most unusual places, like in the locker room when she's half undressed, Kerry-Ann, and she'd be like, Michelle. And then finally she's like, oh my God, I'm so sick of this. All right, I'll give you to my producers. She said, there, do what you will, see what happens. I'm out. So I did, and I chased the producers, and that took a little bit more doing as well. But the concept was basically a 2-minute vignette of me just showing how to do a squat, how to do a lunge, how to do a crunch, how to do a better push-up, how to tie your shoelaces properly if you're a runner, like everything that I could sort of think of in just 2 minutes, just one topic. And so the producers sort of said, oh, look, yeah, we'll give it a go, but we're not going to pay you. And I said, look, that's fine. It's not about being paid. Let's film 5. You put them out on your show. And if your audience likes them, then we'll talk turkey. So that's what we did. And the audience loved them, which was great. I knew they would. And so they back paid me, which is highly unusual in TV. And the rest is, history. And I think within a couple of weeks of me doing this, they actually came to me and said, they rang me one day and said, what do you like at cooking? And I said, yeah, I'm great. And they said, can you come tomorrow to set and film and cook on air live with Kerry-Ann? I'm like, yep, no problem. Be there. I hung up the phone. I was like, shit, oh my God, what the hell? So I decided I was going to do a salmon dish with some greens. So I went and bought 67 pieces of salmon and cooked every single one of them until I perfected it. And then went in on the day. I was so nerve-wracking. Like, I take my hat off to those people on MasterChef, but trying to do it live on air, cook a meal when you're not even a chef or a cook, it was fun.
Was TV always the goal, or was it just that you happened to stumble across Kerry-Ann in a fairly, sliding doors moment?
TV was never a goal. I was in the fitness industry. That was my jam. It's just that Carrie Ann was there. She had this show. I thought it was a great opportunity to sort of like speak to more people about health and fitness and encourage them to get off their couch, encourage them to just go for a walk. So, but once I got started, I was fun. I just really enjoyed it. It was a really lot of fun. But before you knew it, we were filming all the time, and it was like really totally glamorous. Like we'd be in some park and I'd be changing from one outfit to the next in my car. You know, Carrie Ann is a total pro. Like I used to watch her and the way she handled the whole set, from sound crew to production to film crew to just being on camera herself. She was incredible. So I took a lot of like inspiration from that.
And then a few years later, you're sitting on the couch with your then husband, Bill Moore. You're watching this new TV show, 3 hardcore personal trainers from the US lighting a fire under a group of overweight contestants. They're trying to lose weight. It's called The Biggest Loser. What was going through your mind when you saw it?
I was like, I want that job. I was like, I can do that job. I can do that job better. That should be my job.
So how did you get onto the show?
I do think I sent an email that went probably nowhere to the production company in Australia saying something along the lines, if this show ever comes to Australia, I'm putting my hand up straight off the bat. But what happened was I got a phone call maybe 2 years later from a casting agency whom I actually thought was my girlfriend, Louise, because I'd always said to her, oh my God, I want to be on that show, The Biggest Loser. Like, if it ever came to Australia, oh my God. Everybody knew in my circle. And she rang up and said, hi, it's Kirsty de Valance, and I'm ringing from Cast of Thousands, and I'm calling with regards to the Australian version of Biggest Loser, and we were looking to see whether or not you would be interested in auditioning. And I said, Louise, shut up. I know it's you. Don't be such a cow. Come on. I know it's you. You're pranking me. She's like, no, this is Kirsty and I'm from the Cast of Thousands and I'm actually, this is for real. And I went, okay, that's fine. Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you. So I was like, oh my God, I've blown it before I've even had a chance. But it was a long audition process. It was 6 months. And it was everything from fitness tests to audience testing to combining myself with a male, because I had a few boys on the hop as well. And what I was noticing across the 6 months, it just went on and on and on, that the girls were dropping off and I was staying. So I was thinking, oh God, oh my God. And then they put me with Shannon, who I knew. So I was like, dude. He's like, dude. We're like, oh my God. And then they said, have you set this up? I'm like, no, I had no idea. So of course there was chemistry straight away. And then when I got to the psychology test or the psychological test, that's when my husband of the time said, Michelle, you've got the role. Once they start doing the psych tests, that's it. I'm like, really? Oh my God. And then when I finally got it, it was almost like a little bit of an anticlimax because it was just such a long 6 months. And then I got it. I was just like, oh my God. And then Carl Fennessy, who was, a great inspiration of mine. I love that man to pieces. He was the one instrumental behind getting the show. And he owned the production company at the time. He looked at me and he said, Michelle, your life's about to change. And I was like, okay, I'm here for it. Let's go.
And there was a bit of a character that you had to play on the show. You're this sort of no-nonsense, ball breaker to some degree, who does get results. But how much of that was the real Michelle and how much was constructed for the TV show?
I was young. I wasn't that young. I was in my 30s. But I was very green when it came to TV. And I just wanted to do the best job possible. So I wanted to do everything that was asked of me. They asked me to be a bit of a ball breaker. They asked me to, be a hard ass and get in there and like call the shots. And so I probably wasn't 100% myself. There were certainly parts of me that were there, but I was definitely putting together a bit of a hard gut buster of a trainer, which was fun. Sometimes I really had to wind myself up to kind of do some of the stuff that I pulled off. I think people loved it. People hated it. Television is entertainment. I think we all know that. What you didn't see on that show was a lot of behind the scenes. Like I was there from dawn till dusk. I was there at night supporting, encouraging. I was going there on the weekends and spend a whole Saturday with them, training, cooking with them, talking with them, because it was a big deal. Like, they were in a house, locked away, no TV, no radio, no nothing, no family, and we were putting them under the pump. So what you saw was parts of me.
Even though you were the tough woman as well, there was a side of you that was quite encouraging, and you did like to get in on those, as you mentioned, the sort of psychology or the discussion around people's psychology. That was what, you really like to put on the table. Does that really help people when they are having to lose weight? How much of it is mindset? How much of it is the hard work and doing burpees?
It's both. Obviously, it's both. And I think it's probably more mindset really than anything, because you can't want it for someone. They've got to want it for themselves. I got very close to the contestants. You have to. You can't fake it. You'd be there for all their ups and downs, like their children's birthdays that they were missing, tragedies that happened in their life before loser that may have stemmed into the reasons why they were overeating in the first place, tragedy, loss. When you start tapping into the mindset of, the reasons why those people were there on the show, a lot comes up, a lot. And, and I feel like I did a psychology degree for 9 years, 10 years on that show. I learned so much about people. I learned so much about human nature and how to kind of outmaneuver and move on and pick up and dust off and carry on. And you had to be empathetic. You had to be compassionate. You couldn't have done the job without that.
Michelle Bridges is my guest on Curveball. This is Curveball and I'm Kelly Reardon. Fitness leader Michelle Bridges was a household name thanks to The Biggest Loser. But that's not exactly a scalable business. Michelle, how did the idea for the 12-week body transformation come about?
I was actually still doing the show. I was about 5 years into the show. So we were hitting our straps, we were getting over 2 million at one point, viewers on the show. So it was a big, big show. Obviously, I was still a personal trainer. Obviously, I was still a fitness instructor, but I'd had to give all that up to do the show. And the show would take me about 6 months. So in the other 6 months of the year, I started writing a book, and then I started thinking about how I could train people outside of the show. We used to own gyms. We'd sold that gym, the last one. And so I just thought, there's got to be something in this where I can meet people online. And I had a couple of clients where I was emailing them workouts and emailing them, recipes. But I thought there's something else that could be bigger here. And I just felt like I could take everything that I had learned and knew from all the years of being at grassroots level with people and put it online. I went to some friends of mine who then became my business partners, and one of them was an IT specialist. The other was a personal trainer. And I said, look, I think there's something in this. And I was really gunning it towards him being the IT guy. Isn't there something here? And they were like, we just can't see how it would work. So 18 months later, we got it. We got it. And it was basically taking my book Crunch Time, which was a 12-week program, nutrition, exercise, and mindset, those 3 pillars, and bringing it to life online.
Which now in 2022, seems obvious. And like every trainer out there, Sam Wood, Chris Hemsworth, like everyone's got one of these online programs. But at the time, it was quite revolutionary.
Yeah, well, a lot of people were saying to me, oh, really? You didn't do personal training online? I mean, isn't that what personal training is about? It's meant to be personal. And I'm like, well, just watch me, because I really feel like we've got something here. And, we moved very quickly because we could. We put in a bit of money. We'd all owned gyms before. We knew how hard that was. And we thought maybe this was a different concept that we could put together. So within like a day, we'd got, Charlie, the next door neighbor, who happened to have a video camera, to come down the park with me, and my business partner's on her knees with a script. And I'm like, hi, my name's Michelle Bridges, and how would you like me to be your personal trainer? And that was my very first scene that I cut. And we put it up on what was then called a splash page, which I don't even know what that meant, but they said it's going to go online. We're going to gather some emails. And we were like, wow, imagine if we got, I don't know, we could get like 200-300 people do this. I mean, in the meantime, The Biggest Loser is like going gangbusters. Anyway, it just went nuts. When we first opened the doors, it just went absolutely mental. And we were like, oh my God. And because I was very clear how I wanted this business to run, I really wanted it to be inclusive. So the doors will open, we'll start, and then we'll close the doors, and we'll go for 12 weeks. We'll do everything together, every week, every milestone, all of it. And then at the end of the 12 weeks, we'll celebrate, and then we'll reopen the doors and start again. And my accountant said that is the most crazy business plan I've ever heard. You're effectively shutting your doors for 3 months. I'm like, yeah. Because that makes no commercial sense.
No, it doesn't, except that it makes perfect kind of sense for your audience who want a tribe. They want to join a group. They want to go through it together, right? So was that what was in the back of your mind?
Sort of. I'd like to say I was a genius, but the truth of it was that I was just flying by gut instinct. But what happened was what I didn't expect was that when we shut the doors, everyone was like, let us in, so it sort of turned it into a bit of mania where, no, we're closed. So they had to wait for 12. And they're like, And because there was no other platforms, there was no one else doing this, I kind of had this, captive audience. So it just was like incredible to the point where we broke a couple of Guinness World Records. I had to have security when we had our parties at the end of each round. I had to have 3 security guards. It was just mental.
I
was like, oh my God, it's crazy.
You're also cutting your teeth as a boss now, a business leader, a boss. What were some of the early mistakes or lessons that you learned in that early phase of being a business leader?
Knowing that I couldn't do everything, and I was very clear about that. It wasn't like I made a mistake in that regard. I knew I was good at some things and really terrible at others. So making sure that I had good people around me that knew what they were doing and that were also equally passionate about the project. I think we made a lot of mistakes around, growing too quickly and not knowing how to handle that. We made mistakes around not continuing with the IT. Like the IT it's a beast in and of itself. Anybody that works in the IT world will tell you it's crazy. It moves at 100 paces. So you've got to be continually updating. You've got to be continually rebooting that platform, making sure that it stays relevant, making sure that you don't get so far behind that then you're playing catch up. The IT part of the business was extremely important to keep up to date. And I would say, hand on heart, that I've made mistakes in that area and learned from them.
And what about your leadership style today? How has that evolved over your career? You're now in your early 50s.
I've become a lot more hands-on in the business. At the time when the business was going crazy and my profile was really rising and I was doing a lot of work in America, I really wasn't as hands-on. Whether that is a good thing or a bad thing, it is what it was, because I was out building my profile and my brand, which then in turn fed back into the business. So, it's a good thing. But not such a good thing was I didn't know exactly what was going on in that business. And in about 2018, I bought the business entirely out. So it's all mine. And I realized very quickly, if I'm going to do that, I'm going to have to play grown up here. I'm going to have to get that hood up and roll up my sleeves and get under that hood and find out exactly what's going on inside it, all the good, all the bad, and all the things in between, which is what I did. I did that for about 18 months, and it was extremely enlightening, and it was everything that I needed to do as a business owner. And it gave me such a great sense of exactly what was going on, going wrong, going right, my customers, who they are, and the loyalty that I have within my customer base is phenomenal. They've grown with me. They've aged with me. I really feel like, it's a business that I can hand on heart say it's my baby. She's 12 now. And the loyalty from my amazing followers and members of the 12-Week Body Transformation, both past and present, has been like probably the shining light in my career, knowing what we've achieved with those people.
And then in amongst all of that busy work, you're on a TV show, you're running a business, you've met your new co-star, Steve Commando Willis, you decide to have a baby and you have your son Axel in 2015. What was that like? Could you stop and celebrate being a mum, or were you just too busy?
Axel was number one. He was absolutely number one. He came with me everywhere. Everywhere I went, he went. So he did a lot of traveling in his early years, a lot of back and forth around the country. I took him everywhere. I wanted to be a hands-on mum. I didn't have a child at 45, and no judgment to anybody. Everybody does it differently. But for me personally, I didn't have a child at 45 to not have him with me all the time and be his mum. So, and the thing that probably knocked me for six was that I just didn't expect the overwhelming love and joy of this child, because I was always that girl that was just not really sure. You know, when you'd see a family walking down the street, you'd always go, "Oh, I love your dog. So nice." And my girlfriend would be like, "You need to talk about the baby. They've got a baby as well." Like, I just wasn't maternal at all. And I didn't really know if I would have a child.
What changed your mind?
I didn't want to have any regrets. And I could see that if I didn't do it now, it was going to be done, and that the potential for me to have regrets would be there. I actually just went, I'm just going to put it out there. And if it happens, it happens. And if it doesn't, then so be it.
In that early phase, though, when you're still with Commando, you guys are like, you're royalty. You're on the front cover of Woman's Day every week. Paparazzi are following you. How hard was it for you to navigate being a new mother? You've got a business, you've got a partner, you've both got huge profile. What was that time like for you?
Challenging. Yeah, it was definitely, there was moments like, and I'm not going to be a victim and say, I bought the ticket. I'm in the media. I'm well known, and you got to take the good with the bad. And some of it was quite good. Some of it was quite bad too. And to try and navigate around that, and hurtful, because I think sometimes we forget that people who are known are still mums, sisters, daughters. They have feelings. They have family. And so it can be hurtful at times. But I guess for me, I leaned into my family, and I leaned into my friends, and I leaned into my business, because I knew what we were doing was really cool.
And then 2020 it was a rough year for a lot of people. But for you, word got out that your relationship with Steve Willis was over. So you entered this phase of single parenthood. That's not an easy time to be in the public eye. Did you feel yourself retreating in 2020?
There was a lot happening for me at a very personal level. And, I just felt I need to reset, regroup. I need to protect my son. I need to protect myself. And I need to kind of somehow figure out what this new landscape is going to look like. So it was probably, if I'm honest, I would say that year was the most challenging year of my life. Without question. And I learned a lot about vulnerability and how beautiful vulnerability can be, and how beautiful people can be, and humanity. You look at social media and you look at, negative comments or whatever, and you think people are mean, people are rotten. But I found it to be the opposite case. I found a lot of people were very supportive of me and really reaching out, and I allowed my guard to come down, and it was pretty powerful.
How hard was that role reversal for you? Because you've always been the motivator. You're the cheer squad. So when you needed the cheer squad and the pep squad, you leaned into that?
Yeah, definitely. It was everything. It was so good. And it was, like I think about even my members, 12-week body transformation, with 10 years worth at that point, 11 years worth of members, like they just rallied around and were so supportive and protective. And, my close friends were incredible. And, it's true what they say, when trauma hits or tragedy strikes, you soon work out who is there for you, who's got your back. And And I know now that the close people that I have in my circle, they're rock solid.
A driving force in your work is tackling the obesity epidemic. And so I wonder, how big a problem is this in Australia? Can you put it into some context?
Oh, look, that's a great question. And I actually don't know the stats on it at the moment. They're changing all the time. But I think we're sitting around one in three, which is extraordinary. We have what they call a globesity problem. So it's not just here, it's everywhere. And we have, we're surrounded by so much as far as food is concerned. We are living in a world of technology where we tend to be moving less. So it's like a perfect storm, really. And, I just had this conversation yesterday. In the morning, I did a really hard cardio session because I'd been sitting on my butt the day before. So I just did like heaps and heaps of cardio and lots of movement. And I walked to the office, and by the midway through the day, I was already at 17,000 steps. The rest of the afternoon, that 17,000 didn't move. Like, I was in the office and it literally didn't move. And you can see how if you're not moving, even if you train, you can still be what do they call it?
Well, you're sedentary. I know myself. Like, I work
couch potato.
Yeah, well, and we've all gone to working from home, or a lot of people have, where you literally just come out of your bedroom, walk 10 steps, and then you're working in your lounge room or your study or whatever.
Yeah.
Whereas you don't, walk to the train and then get off the train and walk to your office and walk down and get a coffee.
No, it's incredible. So that even if you are, let's say you train for an hour every day, if you're sitting on your butt for the rest of those hours, it's almost like it's defeated the purpose.
So what's the solution, Michelle? What should we all be doing? What's the low-hanging fruit to stop this obesity crisis?
Oh gosh, that is like the biggest can of worms you can put out there. I mean, I've always sort of said we could take our cues from the smoking industry. We've just made it harder. We made it harder to be a smoker, right? With all of our rules and regulations. What say we had a rule and regulation where you could only have so many fast food outlets in a certain perimeter in each suburb. And let's say in those certain percentage of them didn't have car parks, and a certain percentage of them didn't have drive-through, and a certain percentage of them didn't have playgrounds. We just make it a little bit harder. That's just an idea that I was kicking around years ago, like just taking the cues from the tobacco industry.
I'm wondering if your fitness regime has changed now that you're in your very early 50s, doesn't look a day over 30. Because for women who are going through perimenopause or menopause, it is a time when you start to put on weight, maybe if you didn't have it before, and your hormones are changing and, you're busy because you've got a family and all those things. Has your training regime had to change?
100%. Oh my gosh, it has changed a lot, and as has my body and as has my fitness. I feel like as you move through your years and move through your chapters, your life becomes a lot more complicated and complex. And that's just life. So when it comes to my training back in the day when I was, footloose and fancy free, I could luxuriate in a 2-hour training session at the gym, and I'd be teaching classes throughout the week and, doing a huge amount of training. Whereas today, I'm no longer that person that's relying on teaching a class to earn my money. And I no longer have 2 hours to luxuriate in the gym on the weekend because I've got a little boy. And I've also got businesses to run. And so, I'm trying to fit in my workouts where I can. So I'm getting up earlier, perhaps, or I'm fitting one in during the day, or I'm doing one at night, which isn't always exactly what I want to do, but I'll do it. I've actually got some fitness equipment in my home now because my son's in bed in the morning. I'll get up early and knock out half an hour or 45 minutes before he even wakes up so that I've got that cab off the rank. You've just got to kind of figure it out.
And is what you're doing different as well? Like, are you more doing strength-based instead of cardio, or like exactly what has changed other than the frequency?
I train with weights. Weight training is the fountain of youth. And if you're not weight training, you're bonkers. It's like a life insurance policy, but you also still need to do some form of cardio. You still need to get your heart rate up. Now, you can combine those two things together, which is often what I do. Like, I'll often do like a HIIT workout where I'm combining a cardiovascular component along with weight training. And that's kind of fun. But I also will still have a day, maybe two, where I will push and pull heavy shit. because for women my age, perimenopausal, menopausal, we are losing muscle by the truckloads. That is happening. And so there is only one way to combat that, and that's to push and pull heavy things. And you can you won't stop it, but you'll definitely slow it down.
Just finally, Michelle, what do you think that young girl would make of this multi-million-dollar, amazing, multi-pronged empire that you've built, the TV shows, the 12-week body transformation program, all of the incredible things you've done, the active wear?
Oh, look, I think she would definitely be taken aback by all of that. But if I remember, and I remember I wrote this in one of my books, I do recall as a 14-year-old, 15-year-old, 16-year-old, I would lay in my bed at night and I would stare at the ceiling and I would have these dreams that somewhere I would be in front of a large group of people and I would be leading from the front. Now, I didn't really know how that looked, but I remember this distinctly because I remember thinking, if I got married and had kids, doing this, whatever this is going to be, how am I going to have time to cook dinner? And then I thought, hang on a minute, I don't even know how to cook dinner now, so that doesn't really matter, I suppose. So just having that little moment of thought of, how am I going to fit it all in? I was clearly thinking big.
And mindset is so important to you. What's your final message for people around, the way you think about your own mindset, especially when you've had, a dark year? What is it that keeps you going when things are tricky?
You just got to keep moving. You just got to keep one foot in front of the other and not get stuck in your own head. It's so easy to get stuck in your own head, and before you know it, what you're thinking becomes real. And just because it's a thought, it doesn't mean it's true. Just because it's a thought, it doesn't mean it's real. And so I'm a massive believer in therapy. I'll be completely honest with that, because sometimes your friends and family just don't want to hear it. It's good to be able to just share it with someone who's indifferent and really look after your mental health. So again, exercise is the number one thing for that. It takes you away from the problems. The problems will still be there, but after a workout, the way in which you handle them, the way in which you think about them has shifted after a training session. I guarantee it, even if it's just a walk. So I think taking care of your mental health through exercise is probably one of the best things gifts you can give yourself.
Fitness leader Michelle Bridges, co-founder of the 12-week body transformation program, author and the face of the MB Active fitness clothing range. Curveball's produced by Dead Set Studios. Do me a quick favour right now and leave a review for Curveball in whichever podcasting app you use. It really helps other people who are interested in stories of resilience and mindset amid life's messy moments to find our show. This episode was produced by Grace Pashley with editing by Travis Vettier. The executive producers for Curveball are Rachel Fountain and me, and you can find out more at curveballshow.com.